How do you feel?
Defeated.
Oh no! Do you like this problem solving?
Sometimes. I like it when I figure it out.
And how are you going to connect those if they're on different levels?
Of all the problems I have, that one probably worries me the least.
Really?
Yeah. We're about 4 months into the build of our custom aluminum expeditionary catamaran. And by now, problem solving is nothing new to us. Building a boat is an intoxicating blend of wanting to pull your hair out, back-breaking physical labor, and the ultimate satisfaction and pride that comes with bringing your dream to life with your very own hands. Up until now, the majority of the build has been shaping and welding the aluminum to create this sexy, curvaceous beast of a boat. A job that has been full of learning and super rewarding. But if I'm being honest, sometimes it's been tough to be the newbie on the crew. But now we're diving into a project that I've designed myself from the ground up, installing the electrical backbone of Delos 2.0 that will allow us to move an obscene amount of power between our batteries and our hybrid electric propulsion system. We're going all in on a setup that's kind of an experiment, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen on any sailboat on planet Earth. In theory, the numbers all add up, but I'm actually not 100% sure what the outcome will be. And spoiler alert, at the time of editing this, I still don't know if this brainchild of mine will sink or swim. But there's only one way to find out, so let's dive right in. It's so quiet, Kaz.
No, it is.
Hear that? No grinders. The last 4 months of the build has looked and sounded like this. But now the constant sound of welders, grinders, sanders, and various other workshop symphonies were finally on pause.
It's just us this week.
The team's getting the week off. Well deserved. I mean, everybody had such a hard push to get ready for the flip.
Yeah.
They're just hanging out, chilling, spending time with family. Me and Kaz are in here. Not bright and early. I'd say we took our time coming in here this morning.
Yeah. God, I can't hold the camera like that, sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple of projects that I really want to work on this week. It's mostly the electrical backbone for the propulsion system. So I need to run the channels and the bus bar that's going to basically carry 50 kilowatts of power from the batteries to the engines. When you put it like that, it sounds pretty simple. But little did I know that I was about to embark on a week-long saga full of all kinds of ups and downs. But a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and this was ours. This will be the electrical backbone of Delos 2.0, and it's kind of an interesting creation. So we needed to find a way to carry a huge amount of power from the batteries to the electric propulsion system, something on the order of 50 kilowatts of power. That might not mean a lot, but that's like running 500,000 watt microwaves at the same time.
500?
Wait, 50.
50. I was like, what?
Should I start over?
No.
Okay, 500 microwaves might have been a bit of an exaggeration, but it's still a heck of a lot of power. With 50 kilowatts at 48 volts, we'll be pushing through over 1,000 amps. This would be like running about 400 65-inch flat-screen TVs at the very same time, or having 800 people all editing Delos videos on MacBook Pros all at once. Or boiling water for Kaz's tea addiction with 30 electric kettles. If you compare that to our current capacity on Delos, it's 17 times the maximum amps we've ever used, which is pretty crazy. And for an engineering geek like me, these are the kind of stats that really get my gears going.
I love it. I was so impressed.
Anyway,
holy shit.
no, I'm still
50.
impressed. Even 50 is cool.
No, that's
But
really...
basically, it's like powering a couple of houses all at once because each electric motor can consume 25 kilowatts of power. Before I get carried away here talking about our propulsion system, we're gonna do an entire video dedicated to this topic in the future. But feel free to leave your questions in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them when we make that episode. But for today, we're just focusing on installing the framework that will make it all possible. So the question still remains, what does it really take to move that amount of power? Well, to answer this, we'll need to go on a nerdy little adventure into the world of voltage drop calculations. I just happened to find this handy dandy calculator online. After setting my known parameters for the length of the transmission, voltage, and current, my only real variable is the size of the wire. And in this case, I'm adjusting the wire size to get the voltage drop to within specs, which is less than 3% loss. The larger the wire, the more current it can carry, and the lower voltage drop you'll get. An 11mm wire is also known as 4-aught wire, and it's the largest readily available battery cable you can find, and that doesn't even come close. In this case, we'll need a wire size that just isn't realistic, so we're forced to improvise. I've needed to use the equivalent of 500 millimeters squared of wire. So it ends up to be like a cable of wire like this size.
Wow. And heavy, right?
It's heavy, and when I ran the cost, it was $9,000 just for the wire. I was like, ooh, that sounds like a lot. So I came up with an alternative. After doing an obscene amount of research, I found that bus bar used in commercial applications might just be the ticket. This spreadsheet shows a comparison. It turns out that a readily available 80mm by 6.3mm thick bus bar is exactly the same amount of copper surface area. Actually, a little bit more, as 5 of the giant battery cables we talked about before. It's just a lot more compact since none of the insulation is included, and it's a whole lot cheaper as well. I also looked at aluminum bus bar, but the increased resistance would have required it to be way too thick to fit into our available space. So I decided that tin-coated, solid copper bus bar was the way to go. The second piece of the puzzle is how will we insulate it? And that's where this fiberglass channel will come into play. I sort of stumbled upon this material by luck when I was doing some preliminary scouting and planning at the electrical supply store. It's rated up to 11,000 volts and is commonly used for running bus bars in commercial buildings, so I knew it would be up to the task. And so I'm going to lay this inside. See how nice that fits in there?
Wow.
Like a glove, right? And then I have another insulator that'll go down on top of that, a big sheet of the same stuff that I bought that I can cut in strips.
Okay.
And then I'll put another one of these on top of it. And so we'll have
another one of these.
Exactly. So we'll have the positive, and then we'll have an insulator in between, and then the negative.
I think this is really cool, Brian. The electrical stuff is crazy. I've never
It is crazy.
I've never seen anything like this before on a boat or
Anywhere, really.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll work. The math says it'll work. The math never lies, right? But I'm gonna get into it. Should we crank up some tunes?
Yep.
Yacht rock classics. The channels came in pre-cut lengths, which weren't long enough for our purposes. So I needed to fiberglass the pieces together to create a single, longer piece. It's my little sweet method of getting a long roll of cloth saturated with epoxy. And a little shout out to Ran. I was watching them do some glass work on their boat. And
They're doing a lot of glass work.
A lot of glass work. I'm like, glad I don't have to do that much, but he did this little trick where he put it on a roller because it's kind of a long strip and it can get awkward. It would hit the ground and stuff. So then I just unroll it. Pretty sweet, right?
So you're just gonna glass these two together?
I'll just glass them together. It doesn't need to be super strong. I'm really enjoying working in such a big shop. Normally I'm doing projects on the boat and like there's just not enough space, right?
Or
so
on a beach somewhere.
Or the weather's coming or the wind's coming or Sierra wants to play in the cockpit. Now I'm just like, I can set all this stuff up. I can spread out all my tools. I'm really enjoying it. And I can leave stuff like this, right? I can leave it overnight if I want. The whole place is meant for work, not living, so. Look at that, that turned out pretty good. I just gotta get the bubbles out. So satisfying. Yeah. While the epoxy is drying, I need to cut a hole in the back of the boat where the channel and bus bar will be able to slide in. You'll see there's already a hole to the right, along with a channel that goes all the way through the boat, which we pre-planned during the design phase to accommodate the steering system. In hindsight, this entire process would have been 1,000 times easier if I would have done the same for this project, because as you're about to see, pretty much nothing lines up how I had hoped for. But here we are, and for now, it's nothing a reciprocating saw can't fix.
Okay, it's the end of another day here in the shop, and Brian has made some amazing progress while I've been cranking away on the videos. After a full day like this, I really like to wind down at home with my love and a little glass of wine or two. But I also want to wake up at 6 a.m. feeling fresh and rested for tomorrow. My body has always struggled with even the smallest amount of alcohol, and it hasn't gotten any better in my 30s, to be honest. That's why I'm happy to say that this week's video is sponsored by SeaBiotics. SeaBiotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic created by PhD scientists to help prevent rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. This is actually what causes that rough feeling in the morning, not dehydration. SeaBiotic produces an enzyme that breaks down this byproduct. So if you make it your first drink, stay responsible and hydrate, you will feel much better the next day. If you're like us and like to wind down with a few but still feel your best the next day, head to seabiotics.com/Delos to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use the code DELOS at checkout. SeaBiotics is also backed with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So remember to head to seabiotics.com/Delos and use the code DELOS at checkout for 15% off.
By the next morning, the epoxy had fully hardened, and now we needed to cut the vertical height of the channel short enough to fit through the mouse holes it needs to slide through, but tall enough to accommodate the positive and negative bus bars, along with the insulation in between and a little bit of room left over for splices.
This stuff is pretty nasty, so gonna wear protecting equipment.
Blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna wear my welding helmet because it's got the filter on the back and it's got positive air, so it throws air through here and then blows it out. So it works really well for stuff like this.
What are you gonna cut it with?
Huh?
What are you gonna cut it with?
Grinder. I cut with grinder. I go through and I do like a light score on the line and not all the way through in case I make a mistake. And it also gives me a kind of a track to go through. Now I'll go all the way through. That freaking pink dust went everywhere. I had to do extensive vacuuming. Would you mind going upstairs and we'll do our first test fit? So this one needs to come down.
That hole probably needs to be cut.
Yep, a little
higher.
bit taller. Little did I know that this was just the first of many snafus that lied ahead of me during the week to come. After several attempts opening up the gap and still getting stuck, I hoped that this would be the one. Doesn't fit, I'm gonna throw it. Fit, Kaz.
No, don't throw it.
I'm gonna flip it. Man,
Don't flip it.
flip it.
Wait. Yeah, we're at the third one now.
We're in the salon now. But Brian, this is what I said. The salon doesn't.
How far off is the salon?
Probably 3 centimeters.
That's a lot.
Yeah. You can't open these.
I can. I certainly can.
Would that change the strengthness now?
No, it's just a lot of work. What a bummer. Crapola. I think it's time for lunch.
Time for lunch. How do you feel?
Defeated.
You've gotten this far though.
Need to get all the way up here, guys.
Oh my god, yeah, shit. I didn't even think about that. You don't need to get here, you need to get all the way up there. And these holes probably don't line up either.
Don't. They certainly don't. But after a bit of plotting and planning, I had a solution.
Ah, smart solution. You
I think I got it figured out.
Instead of doing the...
Well, the problem is with the center, the drill bit that centers this, it's too long. It won't fit in here, right?
Yeah.
So I built this little jig, since we have a metal shop and all sorts of metal to work for.
Like a guide, kind
It's
of.
kind of like a guide. Let me show you. Basically just put this tube through, or the channel through to where I want it to go. I mark it with a pin, and then there's my little guide. I clamp that over the mark. I finish it off with what I call the little nibbler.
Little nibbler.
This is the little nibbler. Do that until I get it the shape I want.
It should be called a screecher.
A little screecher.
A little screecher.
And then there we go.
Oh, you got them 1, 2, 3, or 4 already.
Yeah,
It's going faster than I thought.
me too. It's my saving grace. The little nibbler and I charged our way through hole after hole, and the hours just flew by. Soon enough, what seemed like it was going to be a never-ending job was now feeling way less daunting. I think we have it. I think we have success. Let me show you what I've got up here. Okay, welcome to the forward cockpit. You notice the insulating channel is in here. We have our last hole right there, and boom! It is now into the electronics and battery compartment. I am freaking exhausted, so we're gonna call it for the day. Kaz already went home to get the nugs. I stayed a little bit late, but that gives me a really good starting place for tomorrow. I think I salvaged the day anyway. All right, see you tomorrow. Good night. You ready to go?
Yep.
I gotta show everybody what you're wearing first.
Why?
This is just amazing. Look at this look.
My tights with boots look.
I love it.
I'm gonna put my overalls on.
Yes. Now that the framework is pretty much there, we need to start getting into some of the nitty-gritty details and measurements that will allow us to go from a vaguish idea to an actionable plan. I know that this thing has got to be this height to fit in here, so we'll go ahead and cut another section of that, see how far back it goes, and then we need to plan where we're going to do our splices too. Because I don't want to do a splice somewhere where we can't access.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll need to like figure out, okay, I can splice the copper like underneath one of the cabinets.
So I mean, it's pretty much between these two.
Okay. So if we put my splice like right here,
Like in the middle of this.
that's a pretty good deal. Then just in case if anything happens, we can put a access in the bottom of that cupboard and I'll know that splice is down there. Now we need to cut the rest of the channel pieces to size, including the final length to finish off the first segment we had already put in, and for the other piece that will run power from the center line out to each motor in each hole. Once we got the correct length, we also needed to trim down the height, although this time we learned from our mistakes, and Kaza followed me along with the shop vac to try and cut down on the obscene amount of pink dust we ended up with on the last one.
this one came in really
smooth?
really smooth.
I beveled those edges.
It's gonna shimmy this one through all the way to here, hopefully.
Okay, so the next trick is this one is the one that runs across, right? There's only 2 holes, one on either end, right? So hopefully I didn't make a mistake by glassing this together into a long piece, right?
Yeah, you might have been a bit optimistic though.
Oh, no, I think I'm look at that.
It worked! Yay!
Never happens. The channel fit perfectly, which was a big relief. But now the only small problem was that we didn't have the best clearance over the steering shaft. I need to know how much we can come up though, right? We have to work between the floor, which gets welded on here, and the shaft for the steering, right? As if by fate, I found a spare piece of angle the exact height I needed to hold the channel above the shaft. Then all I needed to do was cut it to fit the gap between the frames and weld her in. I also realized that the height of the mouse holes changed along the length of the boat, so I needed to make some little supports that would gradually bring up the height of the channel. I welded these guys in. Look at that beautiful weld. So now those set the height for that over this guy, right?
That's way good clearance on that, right?
And we have clearance here as well.
Okay.
And then the only thing I really have to figure out is what to do here. Now, I have a small piece that goes in here, and if I don't bring it up, then you can see this ends up underneath that one, which is not that convenient for splicing. So I've been trying to figure out if that is okay and how I would splice that with either just thicker splice, like multiple pieces of bar kind of like together in a stack, or wire. The wire gets really unruly because you need a lot of it. You need like 8 pieces and it's a small radius, so I think it just turned into like a bird's nest of 100 square mil wire.
Do you like this problem solving?
Sometimes. I like it when I figure it out.
Look at this sunset though. I think it's pretty much time to quit here in about 20 minutes.
It's a beautiful sunset.
All right, for today's adventure, I've started to work on the actual bus bar itself and splicing it, which has been a little bit of a trick, but I think I've come up with something. Here's my method. It's not the most straightforward nor the least time consuming. It's probably the most difficult time consuming method I could have dreamed up, but I think it'll be cool. So here's one that I finished this morning. Basically, I'm gonna put the bars butt to butt. I'm gonna have this plate on top. I tap this bottom part, and then I countersink these brass screws on top. So I'm gonna walk you through doing one of these splices from start to finish right now. Yeah, I'm just gonna crank up the tunes and go for it. My first step was to create a template with the correct spacing so I could replicate the same holes over and over. Now I could use my handy dandy template and center punch to guide the drill. I then held both pieces together and match drilled all the way through with the correct size bit for the tap. Up next, I tapped the bus bar for a standard M6 thread, and then I enlarged the holes on the top connector piece so an M6 bolt would fit right through. Finally, I countersunk the top connector plate so the M6 brass bolts would sit flush, and then I repeated over and over and over and over. And then I laid each and every piece out on the floor to verify everything fit together well and all the bolts tightened down. All right, it's a moment of truth. I think I'm gonna throw it up there and do a dry fit. It's not light, I'll tell you that. Oops. Okay, let's go up and see how it looks. This is pretty exciting. I actually haven't seen how, I have a picture in my head of how I thought it would look. Really should build like a ramp or something, huh? I guess we'll have a deck in soon enough. Okay. Oh, sweet. I don't know. I think that looks freaking cool. I get excited about stuff like this. Imagine how much power this is gonna carry for the boat, right? Okay. Put this one in place and then I'll put the second one in. Boom. Perfect. Okay, that's lining up just beautiful right there. And then we gotta figure out how to do this splice. It's gonna be the trickiest bit since it's on 2 different levels. So yeah, that's real nice, right? I had a few ideas of how I might make the splice, but for now, it was time to call it quits and regroup after the weekend.
It's Monday, and we're back at work.
Holy crap. It's so cold.
It's not that cold.
It's so cold. Might as well be in Svalbard. It's not cold. God. It's like 5 degrees.
You want a hug, mate? Warm me up.
Aww.
Happy Monday, buddy.
I haven't seen you so long, it
How was
feels like.
Sunday? Good, mate. Get some relaxing. I turned your cool metal shop into a fiberglass workshop.
I see that. I see that. That's right.
So this is actually going to be the top layer for the sandwich in the middle for the insulation.
Yep.
Oh no!
Apart from a bit of clumsy maneuvering while taking the clamps off, the insulation layer that will separate the positive and negative bus bars pretty much went off without a hitch. Then I needed to repeat the lengthy process of preparing all the plates to do the splices for the negative bus bar that would go on top. And most importantly, I came up with a plan for how I would make the connection between the 2 separate channels. See how there's those 5 bolt holes tapped in the end?
Yeah.
So I literally just created a stack of plates that comes up like this.
Okay.
And then the bar goes through this slot right here into here, and then the other one sets on top of it and connects it. So the bottom one is going to come up here, and then the top one will come up off the top bar here through a slot and then connect on top.
How are you going to insulate around that?
I haven't figured that out yet.
Okay.
Working on it. This part turned out to be quite challenging, as I wanted everything to fit perfectly with no gaps. I ended up stacking multiple layers of bus bar to meet the height difference between the 2 channels, match drilling them all the way through and tapping the bottom one. With some longish M6 countersunk bolts, actually came together really well. I'm really happy with how this came together. So this is the completed sandwich right here. So it's kind of hard to tell, but this is the top bar, this is the negative bar. And then under that is 8 millimeters of insulation. And then under that is the positive bar. So it goes positive bar, 8 mils of fiberglass, and then negative bar. And so this is the height. If you look back here, you can see what it's gonna look like when it's finished. I'm cutting these 80 mil strips of this insulation material. And then I just basically slide it on top like that. And then I'll use an adhesive along the seams to seal everything up so no dust or no water or anything can get in there. Let me show you the splice. This is what happened back here because do you see how those bars are stacked?
Yeah, I mean they're stacked on top of each other here, right?
So basically the bar comes all the way to the back, and then there's a riser that comes up, and then I cut a notch right here. So then this bar comes in, connects right here, and then goes out. So this is the bottom bar. So what I'll do then is I'll put my 8 mils of insulation down on top of this. And then for the negative one, it's gonna come up here. It'll go through this notch on top of the insulation. And then I'll have my 2 bars running out. So this guy will fit up here, but through this notch down here, right? And then I'll create that sandwich. And I think it's very clean. Everything's very like angular and solid, and I like the way that the connections came out. And I've also Loctited, well not Loctite, but I found a special sort of thread lock that
This one?
works high temperature in case this gets warm from current flowing through it, and it works on metal. And these are brass screws, so they have the same metal expansion characteristics as the copper. It's basically copper with some other stuff added to it. So hopefully all those connections should stay good through different temperature variations and the metal expanding and contracting, because it should expand and contract at the same rate. And then I'm really looking forward to being done. The hardest tasks were behind me, and now I just need to screw everything in, finish sealing up the top layer, and run some conduit before all the deck and flooring got put down. It was an absolute beast of a project, but one that has been super interesting and very rewarding. I'm really happy with how it turned out. All in all, it took about 7 or 8 full days of work to get it done. I was thinking it would take maybe 5 days, so it took a little bit longer than I thought, but the result I think is awesome. You know, basically now I have power running the entire length of the boat that I can tap into on the back, and it's gonna save me running a bunch of heavy gauge wires, so it's a win. It's really exciting for me when a plan comes together, when all the research and numbers and money spent comes to fruition and something you can physically see. Unfortunately, at this point, we're still a long ways away from being able to pump some real power through this thing. And embarrassingly enough, I had run out of time to do any proper testing. So for now, I'll let the calculations and the custom splices speak for themselves, and when the time comes, we can hopefully not watch the sparks fly when we turn this thing on.
Yeah, you can hear it. Sierra has gotten super sick right in time for us leaving. I can't believe it. It's been such a whirlwind.
Oh my God, it's been intense. So
Such
busy.
a push.
I've been putting in like 10-hour days and going in on weekends trying to get like everything done and ready, because Dan and the team are gonna continue with the welding while we're gone.
And I've just been packing, taking care of Sierra. You can hear her death cough. She's just gotten one of those really bad ones.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's today and we're leaving tomorrow, guys.
We're going to Sweden, and well, we're gonna go to the US and see Brady and Alex,
Yeah.
which is gonna be amazing.
That's
like
gonna
a week.
be so much fun. Yeah, your friend, your uncle, Brady.
We'll be back in 10 weeks.
I know, it's not gonna be that long.
It's not that long.
And then we're back at it, so.
He was welding when you weren't here?
Unsupervised welding?
Oh no.